Hey, what's up, contemporary world affairs? Professor Sky, Professor Moss here. It's Wednesday, it's hump day. I'm outdoors. Sun's out, but it's a little bit cold. Made my early morning grocery run this morning. So I still have my mask on. If it looks a little puffy, that's because it has about 5 or 6 dried up Clorox wipes tucked inside. I suspect it's pretty effective. But anyway, I want to hit you with another video, talk about the new terms I put up on Monday. The first term dealt with Mars exploration and how do communities build on Mars in terms of the resources that they're going to need. Second term dealt with the Roma, or the Romani community within Portugal, in light of the COVID struggle. I put up a term on Guangzhou and continental Africans in China who are being targeted because of the coronavirus. And the last term I put up, if you've noticed, I've been on sort of this Japanese kick lately, deals with a Japanese food staple from Hiroshima called Okonomiyaka. Okonomiyaka, all right? So let's start back with the Mars piece. So scientists at University of California, Berkeley came up with this technique. They built this lattice out of ultra-fine, thin metal alloys, and attached to that are bacteria. Now, I am not a scientist. You probably figured that out. So I'm going to do my best with this. Now, the atmosphere on Mars is 96% carbon dioxide. So the scientists said, how do we use that? So they created this lattice, or this trellis, to try to use that carbon dioxide to create acetates. Acetates are the building blocks of many components of the human body. So if we're talking about cholesterol, if we're talking about amino acids, those are acetates. The whole idea is born of the fact that how are you going to grow things that are necessary for human survival in an environment that is seemingly completely counter to the ability to grow? You know, the article makes a good point, though, about how inefficient plants are on Earth relative to how they grow. Sugarcane is listed as probably the most effective in how it utilizes energy in a transition mode. So the question becomes, on Mars, when you have a totally different reality in terms of atmosphere, climate, mineral resources, etc., how are you going to create the components that will sustain a human community at that point? So this was actually a pretty big discovery on their part. And although it's a little sciencey, I think it's pretty easy to understand that we're going to have to take the materials and the resources that are available there and utilize them towards eventually building a community up there, which I'm sure Elon Musk would like to be president of. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, transition. The Roma people. So many of you probably have heard the term gypsy. Well, gypsy is a derogatory term describing a group of communities that emanate originally from northern India and that region. They're migratory by tradition and are often referred to throughout Europe as the Roma, or again, in the derogatory sense, gypsies. Romani is another term you hear for them. And if you read the article on my post, depending on if you're in France or Spain or Finland, they have different names for this community. This community has extended into the Americas. You have Roma communities in Mexico or Mexico, throughout South America, and even within the United States. So understand that they're most normally are often called Roma. In Portugal, where this story takes place, the Roma community there, like many Roma communities, is really dependent on bazaars and markets to sell goods, to sell garments, to sell things they produce. And the coronavirus has shut all that down. Now, we have many communities throughout the world that sort of fall between the social service netting. And that's because they don't appear on tax rolls, their income's not declared. They may not even have like birth certificates or have any sort of officialdom within the nation states that they live. And so the Roma are really struggling in this reality because they don't have any income. And so some philanthropists and altruistic types are really trying to point out to these governments like Portugal and Spain, etc., that this community is struggling and they're going to need help, or we're looking at a really, really desperate situation. Okay? Harley? transitioned to Guangzhou, which is a province in Harley. It's a prefecture. I'm sorry, in Harley. In Harley, that's my dog who's barking. On the Pearl River. It's a massive community. We're talking millions and millions of people. It's also the chosen destination for most continental Africans who travel to China. In Guangzhou, they're able to procure cheap manufactured goods, which they then take back to the continent and sell. So we're talking Ghanaians, Nigerians, Senegalese, Kenyans, all those folks have flocked there. I mean, the community there is probably close to 200,000 continental Africans. Well, recently, there was a group of 3 to 5 continental Africans who broke protocol. They tested positive for corona. They went out in public and got others infected. And now there's an absolute attack on Africans within China. They're being kicked out of their residence, out of their apartments. No one will sell them food. It's a desperate situation. There's always been this odd sort of racism that exists between China and Africa. China's the #1 leading investor in the continent of Africa by far. They blew past the US and the European Union in recent years. And it's a bizarre relationship because while China is really dependent and increasingly intertwined with Africa, they don't seem to have a great appetite for diversity. My dog is barking at nothing, which is not unusual. The last term I put up, I didn't write a lot about, is Okonomiyaka. Harley. Okonomiyaka, which is a traditional food in Japan. So I posted this story actually on my social media account, and Ariko, another professor at the college, shared it because I guess it's a controversial thing. So Okonomiyaka is a food that was born in Hiroshima after the US atomic attacks, which is really basic. It involves what I would consider like a pancake that you pour, and then you put like a ton of chopped cabbage, maybe some dried peppers, maybe some shredded pork, and then on the side you put a bunch of wet ramen noodles that you can put some sauces on, etc. You flip the pancake onto the noodles, then you add a fried egg, some chopped onions, some dried seaweed, mushrooms, and then they have a couple of sauces. Okonomiyaka sauce, I guess, is sort of like a Worcestershire, but not as sweet and much more tangy. It's probably a poor description. And then oftentimes you can throw a cooked egg on it. The reality is, depends on where in Japan you are in terms of how they make this Okonomiyaka. So there are islands that specialize in using eels. Other places use a lot more seafood. There's a vegetarian version. And just like you have gumbo in New Orleans, or you have paella in Spain, or you have ratatouille, right? Ratatouille in Italy, this is a comfort food born of sort of struggle, whatever resources you had, and the reality that you're hungry and you have to eat. So I plan on making it this weekend. It doesn't seem that hard to make, and I would challenge you guys to do the same thing. So keep up with your next op-ed, keep up with the stories I'm posting, and keep up with my videos, because we only have about a month left and you guys need to get some work in. All right? I miss you. I love you. I'm about to go eat. Later.